and mass-produced since 1933, became the first mass Soviet combat vehicle of this type. However, the very first experience of military operation showed numerous shortcomings: weak protection and armament, a consequence of navigability, unreliability of the transmission and suspension, insufficient buoyancy, as well as a short power reserve. As a result, the Design Bureau of Factory No. 37, which was engaged in the development of amphibious tanks, was instructed to create a new tank based on the T-37A, devoid of its most significant shortcomings. The chief designer of the new vehicle was Nikolai Alexandrovich Ostrov, who by that time had experience in the development of the experimental PT-1 amphibious tank and the modernization of the serial T-37A. Work on the tank project under the Factory Index 09A began at the end of 1934, and in June of the following year, a prototype of the tank, which by that time had received the Army designation T-38, was handed over for state trials. The layout of the new tank remained the same, but the turret was now located on the left side of the hull, and the driver's workplace was on the right. The T-38 had a similar armored hull shape to its predecessor but became much wider and lower. The turret was borrowed from the T-37A without significant changes. The transmission and the design of the suspension bogies were also refined. Despite all these improvements, the new tank again showed low reliability during trials, breaking down regularly and standing idle for repairs rather than undergoing trials. Nevertheless, the T-38 was clearly superior to its predecessor and, according to the results of trials that lasted until the winter of 1935, on February 29, 1936, it was nevertheless accepted into service with minor modifications. Production of the T-38 began at Factory 37 in Moscow in the spring of 1936. By the summer, the new tank completely replaced the T-37A on the assembly lines. From the second series, an important change was made to the design of the tank's transmission. The car differential was replaced with side clutches. In September-December of the same year, the production tank, modified based on the experience of the prototype, successfully passed the warranty run. At the same time, the test report noted the previous shortcomings of the new vehicle: a small reserve of buoyancy, insufficient power-to-weight ratio, a tendency to drop tracks, insufficient suspension shock absorption and unsatisfactory crew accommodation. Together with the T-27 tankette and an earlier model of the T-37A amphibious tank, the T-38 in 1938 to 1939 was actively used in experiments on its airdropping by landing. The small dimensions and weight of the tank allowed it to be transported under the fuselage of the TB-3 heavy bomber between the landing gear bogies. In this form, the tank was captured more than once in photographs of the late 1930s, including during military exercises. A number of specific problems arose during the landing of the T-38. The mass of the tank exceeded the maximum bomb load of the TB-3, which gave a high risk of landing gear failure. Therefore, in 1939, experiments were carried out on the Bear Lakes near Moscow to drop these tanks from an aircraft onto the water surface. The T-37A tank, dropped without a crew, splashed down successfully, but sank due to unsealed observation slits. During an attempt to drop the T-38 with the crew, the splashdown was unsuccessful. The tankers were injured, although the tank remained afloat. In general, these experiments revealed the tank's low suitability for landing on the water surface, and the development of the technology for airdropping the T-37A and T-38 tanks in this way was stopped. The use of the new T-40 amphibious tank for airborne purposes was considered promising. The PE-8 heavy bomber was supposed to be used, but work in this direction did not leave the design stage. In the future, the air transportability of small tanks opened up opportunities for qualitative reinforcement of the airborne units of the Red Army, but in the real combat situation of the beginning of the war, the airborne T-38 was almost not used, with the exception of the transfer of several T-38s of the 5th Airborne Corps by air near Msensk on October 3, 1941 during the Battle for Moscow.